Mr. Wick, to what do I owe the pleasure?
My ring. My freedom.
Your ring is gone, like the elder before me. And if you came here thinking you could end this by killing me, then you are mistaken. My death will not change the outcome any more than you can change your nature. None of us can escape who we are. And no one escapes the table. And the only way John Wick will ever have freedom or peace now or ever is in death.
I know.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
And I'm Kat.
And this episode, we're going to be covering John Wick Chapter 4 from 2023. It just came out. It's probably going to be coming out of the theater soon anyway, so you'll probably get it on digital download or streaming eventually soon. So with that, we'll run right into it because honestly, we did cover John Wick Chapter 3 not too long ago, so we wanted to get this particular episode out sooner. So
yeah, it's sooner than a year.
Sooner than a year or 2 years.
Oh, God. Time flies.
Time flies. All right. So the synopsis of this particular movie, with the price on his head ever increasing, legendary hitman John Wick takes his fight against the high table global as he seeks out the most powerful players in the underworld, from New York to Paris to Japan to Berlin. So yeah, he's globe jumping everybody in this particular film.
Yeah, well, we get a bigger universe.
Yeah,
the John Wick universe always grows.
A huger universe, of John Wick. So you John Wickians out there will love this.
The Wickheads.
The Wickeds. All right. So with that, we'll move on to people we know within the particular film. And I'll start off. Obviously, we mentioned it last episode from when we covered John Wick Chapter 3 and Lance Reddick, who plays Sharon. And this was his last film. He died during the press junket for the John Wick Chapter 4. And it was out of the blue. But oddly enough, spoilers. And we already
all spoilers here.
Yeah, a lot of spoilers here because obviously the movie's been out for a couple of months. It's made a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But just like in the movie, he did pass away. And oddly enough, the fact, I think that works out in the sense that if we did get another John Wick movie and he wasn't there and there was no answer regarding that,
they wouldn't have to explain it.
We wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't have to explain it. And he was a great actor, and we mentioned all his other movies and everything from the last episode of Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. So check that out and just check out those particular movies that we recommended.
It was really sad. It was hard to see him die. It
was for the fact that when I saw that he had already been. In real life passed on. Yeah. So it was just strange, but
life imitating.
Not life imitating art, but in a sense,
art imitating life.
To some degree, but
okay,
he didn't get shot or killed, I believe. So
that we know of. Sorry,
but
some of us deal with death by making jokes, even bad jokes. So,
but next up.
That would be Marco Zarro? Zaror. Thank you. I did not practice saying his name, just the other ones. And he played Chidi, which for me was the most forgettable character. Sorry.
He was like a henchman.
He was, you know what he was? He was another weapon. To me, he was just a weapon. Yeah, not a person, he was a weapon. He was an extension of the table. So... And he was in Mirage Man in 2007. and Savage Dogs 2014, and Redeemer 2017. And I've never seen this actor, so
yeah,
he
was more of like an action B movie action star. I hate using that word B movie, but he was more of an action star that you'd see on like HBO or streaming or things of that nature. Kind of like what I used to like to do at Blockbusters nights and look at all these weird, strange films and be like, hey, let me pick this up because this looks pretty cool and interesting. For $4, I'll do that for one night just to be entertained. And
way back.
Yeah.
In the way back when we had to go rent things.
Exactly.
Physically leave the house.
It would be like one of those things that I would actually rent back in the day. So he's one of those character actors that are out there that are in the industry, but actually, he's in a major film. So
yeah, and he had a lot of screen time. He really did. I mean, he was a character that had a lot to do in this movie.
I think it was based upon the fact that he had that experience in action and those physical combat scenes that they have. So he kind of fit him perfectly within that. It's as if Jean-Claude Van Damme was out here and doing his thing again.
Well, they're good at they pull in really talented people.
Yeah, they do.
So I mean, talented in the way that they all know martial arts. They're already stunt people, so they do a good job because it's in their wheelhouse.
Yep. Next up would be Hiroyuki Sanada, and he plays Shimazu Koji, and we remember him in The Last Samurai in 2003. 47 Ronin in 2013, along with Mr. Keanu Reeves. Mortal Kombat in 2021. A lot of people didn't like that movie, but I did enjoy it. It was better than...
entertaining. Not everything has to be a work of art.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a work of art, but it was far better than the other versions of Mortal Kombat that we got. The original Mortal Kombat I did enjoy. The second one that they did was interesting. This 2021 version, pretty cool. I thought it was interesting. And lastly, obviously, Bullet Train in 2022.
Yeah. All right. Well, next we have Bill Skarsgård as the Marquis, one of our new generation characters and actors in this. He was in Chapter 1 and 2. He was he was. Oh, there's no year on that. Okay, Barbarian 2022. And the TV show Hemlock Grove, that would be 2013 to 2015. And of course, he's part of the famous Skarsgård family. So he's good at playing the bad guys.
Yeah, it's the Skarsgårds.
The Skarsgårds. That's how his accent was very interesting. It was kind of French with a little bit of Swiss in there? No, Swiss. Swedish in there.
Well, yeah, they are Swedish descent, the family, and but the character was supposed to be French.
Well, if you listen to them in interviews, you can hear even with the second generation, you can hear the accent in there. So it's
there slightly, yeah, especially Bill, not Bill, his brother, I forget,
Alexander
Skarsgård.
How can you forget
he was
him?
In True Blood. And then you got the father, who is also in the Marvel films, who we all know. And it's an interesting family. I love seeing them in films. I don't know why.
Because they're good actors.
Yeah, they're great actors, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next up would be Rina Sawayama, and she plays Akira. And that would be Koji's daughter, which I didn't realize towards like as we got into the film, like, wait, this is his daughter.
Yes, because she plays the concierge.
Yeah.
And the way they did that was very clever. Economy of lines to let us know who she was, what role she played, and then who she meant to the manager.
Yeah. Like I said, she plays Akira. She is originally a singer and songwriter in her own right. Apparently, she's very popular out there in the world and music. And I did not know this. It's like it tells you how oblivious I am to this world. And
they pull in a lot of people who are well known internationally.
And she
Japan
is internationally
and Hong Kong,
known.
and
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
where she's from. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's amazing. But she's only known, and she's been only in these particular movies like John Wick 1 and John Wick Chapter 4. That's the only time that we've ever seen her on film.
Okay. How about that? So next we would have Donnie Yen, who is Kane, who is just, I think, one of the stars of this movie. He's from the IP Man series.
Ip Man.
His legend. Yeah, you had to make me read something I haven't read yet.
Sorry.
The Ip Man?
They call it Ip Man.
Okay. Well,
But you
I'm
can
gonna
call it
mess the
IP
rest of
Man.
this up.
I used to say IP Man all the time until somebody said, "Hey, it's Ip Man." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. It's like calling the IT crowd the It crowd. Oh, but it was a legendary kung fu for years. Said that wrong too, didn't I?
No.
The live action version of Mulan.
Yeah.
And of course, I think we all know him from Rogue One from Star Wars, where he played a blind force sensitive character. So it's not the first time he's embodied that characteristic.
Yeah, he doesn't say the force is in me and I'm one with the force all the time in this particular movie. So,
No.
But I loved him in that particular movie too. He was it was a character that I just liked. But the fact is his work within Kung Fu in that particular movie in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Oh, that was amazing. And
very underrated movie too. I mean,
very underrated. A lot of people don't like it, just like Han Solo, a Star Wars movie as well.
Well, I'm in that camp. I didn't care for it as much. Second watch, it was better. The first watch, I was a little disappointed, I guess.
Yeah, but honestly, over time, people develop kind of a flavor for it. They do
a little fondness for it.
Yeah, they appreciate it as it goes by. Hopefully, we do get there'll
be more.
Movie.
There'll be more in the whole universe and the legacy.
Yep. Next up would be Shamir Anderson, who is the Tracker.
Or Mr. Nobody.
Or Mr. Nobody, yeah, literally. But he also has a dog. He's got a German Shepherd, doesn't he?
Either that or a Malinois or Lone Chow. Not sure.
Not sure.
Probably
either.
A Malinois.
But we could see him in movies like Bruised, that came out in 2020, Awake in 2021, and Bruiser 2022.
I have to check those out because honestly, I did not recognize him.
No, is he very elusive. He looks very different.
And those are all shows, 2020, 21, 22. So he's early in his career.
Yeah, he's still young and he's still making a name, but I thought he was very good as the character. And
yes, I agree.
Very respectable as far as an actor and with his chops and everything, especially within this particular movie. I really enjoyed it. So I look forward to see what he comes up in the future.
And then we have a smaller role, but couldn't leave out Clancy Brown. We know him from Shawshank Redemption in 1994, Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, Stormtroopers from way back in 1987.
Starship Troopers.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
If it was Stormtroopers, it would be a Star Wars story.
This is true. It'd be a bad one because they'd all die.
Yeah.
I know. Sorry. That's my reading
Starship
skills.
Troopers 1987, which actually is something that we want to cover here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. I almost said Panels to Pixels. Wow. I forget which podcast I'm doing now. But
that'd be a great one to cover.
Yeah, it is. It's something that I always enjoyed.
Yeah. And of course, as soon as I saw him, the only character, the only thing I think of is Highlander from
Kurgan.
1986. The Kurgan. He was great in that. He's also done a whole lot of voice acting in a lot of animated series. And he's one of those actors that shows up for smaller parts in a lot of different shows.
Yes. He was also in The Bride with Sting and Jessica Biel as well. So
that's a pull.
That is a pull. That came out back in 1985, I believe. So that was his first experience with latex. So those Highlander fans that actually listened to the Highlander coverage that we did here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast will recall the fact that I brought up that he was in that particular movie and he got used to the makeup and knew the makeup run, because when they had to shave his head for the Kurgan, do the skull tattoo with a little bit of hair, that's where he was able to come into play and know and be like, hey, I'm ready for this. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, Clancy Brown is one of those actors that anytime you see an interview with him, he is the most pleasant person.
Right. And he has that deep, smooth voice. And that's, I think, a lot of his
voice.
Yeah. Very distinct, very distinct. And he has over 300 acting credits.
Yeah.
Forgot what I was going to say, so cut that part out.
He's been around for a long time. He's an actor that we know, that we do see on film or even hear in voiceover work. So, yeah, it's amazing. It's great to have the, I like to say, legendary Clancy Brown.
Yeah, one of those characters from the high table that's also impartial. He was great in that. I love seeing him.
He was perfect at the very end, I thought.
The Harbinger,
Yeah, he plays the Harbinger in the actual John Wick Chapter 4. So yeah,
he's just there to deliver the message and handle business.
All right. Well, with that, amongst all the other characters that we already know, obviously, Keanu Reeves is John Wick. We already know who Winston is.
Ian McShane.
We already know who the Bowery King is.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes, so we already know those. We've already mentioned them in the previous episodes that we've covered when it came to John Wick chapters 1, 2, and 3. So we're not going to go through all those, obviously, because we'll be here all day. All right, so with that, we're going to move right along into general thoughts of the movie. So, Kat, what was your overall thought of the particular movie, John Wick Chapter 4?
Well, my overall thought, and I kept saying this, especially to my sister, we had made a date to go together, was that it was the most John Wickian John Wick you'll ever see. And I thought it was fantastic. We talk a lot about the choreography, but the art they put into the lighting, they've always had great music, but it was great from that point of view. But they also brought in characters, and with a real economy of dialogue in the writing. We got to know who they were. They had emotions. They cared about people. They had relationships. And I think that really made the movie. I mean, of course, Keanu Reeves and John Wick do, but that really brought some richness to this movie. And those are my general thoughts. I really loved it.
I really enjoyed this movie. My thought at the very end, honestly, I thought this could be the last. And I realized at the very end, with any particular movie, they could literally pull John Wick from the grave.
I know. They left that door open.
They left that door open easily. All right, listeners, you guys know what I have to say about this, and I'm going to say it in a way of a Marvel thing. Nick Fury's been dead like 2 or 3 times already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They could easily do the same thing. John Wick could literally fake his own death.
Well, and I that's when I watched it. That's what I thought. I mean, I didn't think like John Wick's not dead. I was in denial for 2 weeks.
A lot of people
went, oh God, people think they killed him. It's like, he's supposed to be dead. I think he's supposed to be dead because that's where they want to put him in this series. And I really think they want to go on with a new generation and different stories.
Well, they could do previous stories where he could show up, and then they could also do spin-off series. Like we're already getting the Continental mini series. It's not like a mini series movie series or something like that. We're also getting the Ballerina. So I would not be surprised if Keanu Reeves just shows up, because originally the thoughts of the director, producers, and writers for this particular movie, they wanted to do John Wick 4 and 5 back to back.
Right. And that's why I thought he can't be dead. I mean, he's not dead. There's John Wick 5. And then the more, like, if I listen to some interviews and talk to other people, they're like, no, he died. It's done. Like, no, it can't be. That's why I said I was in denial for 2 weeks. Just like, no, he's not dead.
That's like saying Neo's dead.
Maybe I need to accept the fact that he's gone. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I also thought, like, if they did a prequel, if they showed his life either before when he was training as an assassin or part of his life with his wife, who would they pick for that actor? Because Keanu couldn't do it. He's fabulous. But who would they pick for a 30-something?
I have an idea. Hold on.
You do?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, how can you replace Keanu Reeves? But yeah, I'm sure there's someone out there that's talented. But that was just a thought I had today. And it would be interesting. I would watch it. Keanu or not. So who are you thinking, Mark?
James Duvall, who was Miguel Cass in Independence Day. He's kind of got that Asian look like Keanu Reeves. So if you remember, he's the oldest son to Randy Quaid's kids in Independence Day.
Oh, I see.
He had the longish kind of hair, but he also has that tan. And
he did have a Keanu Reeves vibe to him, for sure. Yeah. I can see that.
But he's a lot older now, and I think he could actually play that particular character as an older or, slightly younger John Wick, because at this point, John Wick is probably in his 50s. So, obviously...
Right, so in a prequel, he would have to be in his 30s.
Correct, and I think he would work perfectly in that.
Oh, interesting.
So, that's just my thought.
All right, so what was your general overall thought?
My overall thought, I love the movie as a whole. Mind you, when I walked into the actual movie, watching it, I was like, this can't be the last movie. No. Well,
it's not. I'm still in denial.
Yeah, a lot of people are in denial as well as I am, but it gave us so many key moments of action that I just loved. From the stairwell scene to the guys that are in the samurai armor in that one scene in Japan.
Right, and we got more than just a fight scene. We had sequences within a fight scene.
Yes.
That piece in Japan was like 35 minutes long.
Exactly, and it was amazing. Great. And then you get the duel scene at the very end, which was so classic movie genre in a sense of the twist, and I loved it.
I love that too. It was so creative.
I actually realized it as it was happening. I'm like, wait, John never really took the shot. It's his way of easily getting at the marquee. And I was like, awesome. We got it. We know what's happening. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we said spoilers. So it says it in the notes before you actually clicked on the podcast to listen to. Spoiler. So yeah, he gets one off on the marquee himself.
And I always love a movie where I don't exactly see it coming. But the way they put it together, and even the questions after, I kind of looked at it. I'm like, okay, so when did they come up with this plan? When did we get a hint about it? So I've just thought too much about this. So I have ideas of when that happened too. But it was so wonderful.
I honestly think with that, just to get into a discussion of the film at this point, I think it was discussed between Winston and John at one point.
And that I haven't thought about that, because at the end, we see a lot more of emotion with Winston in this one.
Correct.
And I really think he felt that John was going to, or likely to, die. But I'm not sure he knew about the arrangement until he said to the marquis, like, you, whatever it was, you fucking fool, is what I think of in my mind. He didn't take the shot. I mean, I know it just, then he knew. He had the grin on his face. Man, Ian McShane does such a great job with Winston. And he's so well written. I'm sure he just loved playing that part.
I love the fact of the idea of Winston because, all right, hear me out. And this is like panels to pixels in me. Thinking Keanu Reeves as John Wick, Batman, Winston as his butler.
I could have seen that before. I mean, they're so perfect.
Yeah, kind of that kind of rapport, but, there's still that trust issue. Because even, John had those trust issues with Winston. And Bruce Wayne / Batman had his issues with, Alfred throughout years too. It's like he tried to keep things secret, even though Alfred knew everything about him. And the fact that Alfred kind of knew that about Bruce or slash, Batman. So that was my thought about the whole thing. And then, of course, I look at the Bower King, forgetting who he was in the
Lawrence
Batman.
Fishburne?
Yeah.
What character you thought he would play?
It was it's a character did all his tech in the Batman series, and I always loved that character. But it made me think of that. I'm like, oh, okay, because he got that Kevlar suit.
Oh, I love that. They all have them now. He's got his Superman cape in the
literally.
I know, it's just like keep pulling them up in front of themselves. That was just
not to mix match and do podcast crossovers, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. It's just my way of thinking, and when I'm watching this, I'm like, this is so amazing. But then again, it is an action film. It is kind of like a superhero film in a sense of how John Wick is presented.
Well, and to that, with Batman, he's a man. His superhero bend comes from all the tech he has.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
same thing with John Wick. I mean, they're just
the guns,
regular men. Guns, experience,
skill.
Talent. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Originally, I thought the movie was a little bit slower paced in comparison to Chapter 3. And it seemed like it didn't take right off from Chapter 3 right into Chapter 4 because he had time enough to heal.
Right. It was at least 2 months.
Yeah. Because a majority of the way they kind of portrayed the series is that this is 3 weeks in the life of John Wick.
No, I think Chapter 1, 2, and 3 were all 1 week.
I thought it was in 2 or 3 weeks, at least.
Well, I could be incorrect.
Well, we don't know. But if you people have any information regarding that, you'll let us know. You can tell us and correct us. But my feeling was it was within 2 to 3 weeks of John Wick's life, the first 3 films.
Well, I had read it was 2 months. And if you look at his stump when they show that.
It's healed.
It's really well healed. So it had to be a while.
Yeah, even though he bloodies it while he's hitting dummy.
Well,
and the Bowery King comes in.
Happen.
And he lights the torch, and it just goes into this whole fiery
It wasn't
symbol.
exactly a circle of trust.
No, it wasn't, but it kind of gave me the feel of the Crow when you see the Crow just toss the match down. So I'm like, okay, we're getting a lot of superhero vibes out of this. What's going on here?
I think there were a lot of nods to other movies, other movies. Yeah. He didn't have the eyeliner, but I could see that. No,
but I did enjoy the movie thoroughly, and I really had a good time with it. One thing that I really did enjoy, I really liked the armor of Chidi's crew in Japan. That I really enjoyed, and I love that idea. Maybe it's the Silver Samurai love in me for Logan, where you have these guys that have all this adamantium armor and everything on. But the fact is, in that one particular scene, John actually has to shoot up inside the helmet of one of the guys. Shoots it.
Right, because it's hard to kill them.
Yeah.
And also the other thing is
he slits his throat.
Yeah. Well, you got to go for the vulnerable areas. But even, did you notice how he kept shooting them in the head over and over just to stun them?
Correct.
Or in their army, because they've made it clear that even though you're shot, it protects you from having the bullet go through you.
Yeah.
But it really packs a punch.
It does. It does. It stuns you. It could make you dizzy because obviously, who knows if they have shocking material inside that in the helmets itself. Probably
in real
not.
life, it would be the whole bells ringing, little birdies flying around your head.
Literally, their head is a bell at that point.
Yeah, that's true. And also, this is weird or off in a tangent or weird thing. Reminded me of insects or beetles or roaches. Also, if you looked at the whole of the uniform, it also mirrored the warriors in that museum. If you look back at history,
yes,
with the Japanese samurai, it mirrored that with kind of the skirts and the little flare in the helmets, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, similar to what they did with Westworld. In the original Westworld in the 70s, not the actual TV series on HBO. which was actually very good as well too, mind you. But yeah, I did enjoy that.
There were a lot of good scenes, and I mean, I hear what you're saying. With you thought it was slower, there were slower parts.
It was slower paced at certain points. That's all it was.
We'll see, and that's what I think was part of the beauty of this one that I liked is they took time in between the fights, in between the battles, to give us a little bit more character. I mean, more dialogue, but we got to know them better. And I thought that is what made the 3 hours feel less than 3 hours. It wasn't, I mean, it's super action packed, but you'd have action sequence over and over. And then you get kind of a quiet part where we'd hear what it's about. It's not just all about killing people. I mean, well, actually, I take that back. The quiet parts were all about killing people too. But they weren't actually killing people at the moment. So.
That is true. Did you have a scene that you favored as well?
All of them.
Break it down to a little specific, at least.
Okay. Well, even I could say the scene or the series of scenes that we were just talking about in the Osaka Continental was amazing. It was a long one, 35 minutes long. I loved the lighting and the art and how it began. I mean, we had the part where the manager and the concierge are talking and reveal that it's father and daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But when they go up on the roof, do you remember that scene where John, he's standing there all dark and behind him is the cherry blossom tree. Mm-hmm. And we have light coming off. I think there's like a bulletin board or going, neon behind him. So it changes during the other scenes, but it looked just like a graphic novel. We had his black silhouette. And when he turns, the color and the lighting in this is amazing. And when he turns and they're talking, the way the red plays off his face in profile is it's beautiful, but it was really echoing scenes from a great graphic novel from the comics. But my favorite part my favorite scene in that sequence is when we have Kane coming in. He's a great comic relief in this. He's sitting behind something, just eating his bowl of noodles. He is sitting there waiting for the rest of them to kill a lot of people. We've got to get rid of a lot of these people. So he's just like relaxing and sitting there. Instead of super high tech, I mean, the suits are great, high tech. But his little doorbells, he doesn't have like some magic, wonderful, thing. Those are like fucking doorbells.
Well, the bells
motion
from the
detector
ovens.
Doorbells. We could go buy at the hardware store.
Well, that was in the kitchen scene during that battle because the ovens were set for timers for bells, and he was able to distinguish where they were at that given point. And that's what I love about the fact that that actor was blind in this particular film just as well as he was in a Rogue One Star Wars story.
I'm not sure what you're saying there, but I disagree.
Really? You don't think that was...
I don't think it had to do with the kitchen cooking equipment. He pulled those out and slapped them on the wall.
Oh.
And it was motion detected. And you literally hear like ding dong.
All right. Well, I didn't
apparently see this movie. And those were like super high tech. It wouldn't have been like, well, okay, maybe I've thought about it too much. But it wouldn't have been something really super Batman high tech. It could have been, but they're literally like little motion detected doorbells.
But that would be genius.
So he's walking along, he's kind of picking out where they go and slapping them so that when they walk through them, he knows exactly where they are.
Where they are. Okay.
Yeah, it's like his location thing. And that was just funny. It was genious.
It is genius. I didn't catch that. So obviously I wasn't paying too much attention.
Yeah. So, he just had, there are a lot of scenes in this or parts that are just like, they feel like they're right out of cartoons.
Well, here's the situation with Keanu Reeves. I mentioned this before in the podcast. He has a comic book that's out there that a lot of people are not aware of.
Mm-hmm. And
it's called Berserker. Now, I listened to a podcast with Kevin Smith not too long ago. Actually, I was at a Fat Man Beyond live, and he kind of mentioned it after the live podcast at Smart Castle Cinemas. And it was me and a bunch of others and him standing there talking to us. And he stated that when he was trying to push for the Buckaroo Banzai TV show for Amazon or Netflix or whatever, I think Amazon was the one that was up for what they were going to do for Buckaroo Banzai. And they said, oh, we'll do this animated. And he goes, all right, that'd be perfect. And
he's pretty tired from this series. He can take a break.
But Keanu expressed interest and had a Zoom call with Kevin regarding that. But he had to back out because he wanted to do Berserker as like an animated show for Amazon. So that's probably why it got lost in red tape and everything, and why it never came to be for Buckaroo Banzai. Because Keanu is invested completely in the show. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to do a live action version, but they could easily do an animated version with him and voicing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be perfect. And honestly, if you listeners, if you did not pick up the trade paperback, get it.
I have it in hardcover.
Yeah, if you get it in hardcover, it's like the first 5 or 6 issues, and then they have several trades after that. It's very brutal. It's very bloody. It looks just like Keanu Reeves. So.
We'll see. That's my point.
So, but,
and you know what? I'm not technical. I was thinking of it as simple, like Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
Kane is sitting there at one point. He is punching a character, one of the fighters, in the head like he was punching a punching bag. It's like boom, 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 boom. And then he pulls back and he does the whole spinning his arm helicopter, like he winds up and the Popeye punches him. Yeah, the whole Popeye thing. Exactly. So I didn't go that deep into it, but there were a couple of these that were kind of classic.
He was channeling
cartoons.
His inner Robin Williams.
Yeah. He almost smirked at himself at that point, but
tongue in cheek. Boom.
Yeah. He didn't have to do that. It took a minute, but they're just, talked about this is brutal. A lot of people don't like it because they say it's so violent.
Think about it as this. It's the animated violence that we love in action movies now as adults, but mimicking the things that we loved as kids in Looney Tunes cartoons with Coyote and the Roadrunner and all that weird stuff. It's just it's just like they just play it out there.
Well, and the comical relief like that if you, of course I was looking for stuff like that, but it's what breaks up the violence.
It does break up the violence, especially one key part that I did really enjoy and I loved, and a lot of people hate it, is John's venture up the stairs at the
God, people hated that?
3-5 minutes. A lot of people hated it that I know.
God, how could people hate that? I haven't talked to anyone that did, but that's in my favorite scenes.
But it's one of my favorite scenes. He gets up there. He gets all the way up to the top to that point where he throws the gun at the guy at his crotch, knocks the guy down, and then he gets taken out by somebody else, and then he falls.
He rolls.
He literally rolled all the way
bottom.
down to the very bottom, and he only has 3 minutes left.
I know.
And
that was
who's
so
there
funny.
to help him to get up on his way? Kane.
Yeah.
Who is there to be the one he has to duel with.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that...
But he's there as an ally.
He's there as an ally and a friend because he didn't want to take the job to begin with.
Right. Well, and that's one of the themes through this is friendship and loyalty. I mean, we had rules and consequences in Chapter 3. And this one really relies on, friendship and family and loyalty, which, I thought just made it richer.
Yeah, I always really enjoyed that in the sense that it showed loyalty to
and that's
people.
when we see the tracker, Mr. Nobody, comes in and becomes an ally.
He does become an ally.
Mm-hmm.
After he splits his hand in front of the marquee, which was a throw-up moment for me. I wanted to gag and throw up my popcorn.
There is always a scene in every one of these movies that I cannot watch, even the second time.
One of them.
It's just I couldn't watch through my fingers. It was just a cringe moment, yeah.
It was a cringe moment. And the fact that the dog was there and the fact that he had control over his dog, The one cool thing about that, the fact that he had a dog and his dog was loyal to him, just like John.
Yeah.
And he loved the dog too.
Well, and that's the turn where the tracker becomes an ally, is when John saves the dog. And I didn't get, is the dog's name Killer?
I think so.
That's what I thought too. I was trying to figure that out. But yeah, I love that character too. I really did. I really did.
He was a good dog too.
Oh, I was talking about the tracker, but he was a good dog too.
I love the dog. I'm sorry, it was like leaning more towards the dog.
There has to be a dog in every John Wick movie. If there's not a dog in Ballerina or the Continental, I will be disappointed.
Which makes me question, if Tyrone had the dog and he died, where is that dog now?
Yeah, I'm sure he's well taken care of, because the concierge would not leave that bit untaken care of.
I'm wondering.
He's all about the details. That's his job.
Once we get to the Continental mini-series movies, maybe there's a beginning. At the very beginning, you see Winston with the dog, and he's taking care of the dog. I hadn't thought about that. And then he talks about John, but then he goes into a whole how he got into becoming in charge of the Continental, and then he goes, it's like a backstory. Because that's literally what I hadn't
thought of that.
The Continental is.
Yeah, kind of just a little lead up in the beginning with Winston. Gosh.
So producers, writers that are out there, I know there's a writer strike that's going on. If you need somebody to write, give you ideas, let me know. I'll charge you.
Oh, don't be a scab.
Hey, how could I be a scab when I'm not even a writer itself?
Well, you cross that union line.
I'm not even in the union yet.
Okay, can we get technical here? When the union strikes, if you take the job, then you're a scab.
I'll rip that scab off too. I'll give it to Mark Bernardin.
God,
hey, Mark,
it.
Take the job. I'll give you the ideas. We split the cost.
Well, now you know my bent. I'm a union person.
The one thing that I really did enjoy about this particular movie, and probably liked it too, is Winston wants to get back at the Marquis because of the fact that they destroyed the original Continental. That was the one thing that we haven't talked about. They literally blew it up.
Oh, that scene was brutal.
That scene was so horrific, and you could see the look on Winston's face of upset.
John Wick can shoot 140 people, and the brutal scenes are when they blow up a building and a guy cuts his hand.
Yeah. But
that leads up to one of the saddest scenes when the Marquis makes Sharon take the responsibility, or he's the cost of Winston's disloyalty. And Winston would have rather died. He walked in there thinking that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
and
he thought he was
Sharon
gonna
at
die.
some point, Sharon says he wants to go in there. Winston tells him no.
Yeah.
That's another loyalty thing. Of course, Sharon went in.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But they actually talk about that at the very end, too, in the boat between the Bowery King, John, and Winston.
Oh, with the what would you like on your grave?
Correct.
Part. Well, and that's part of the whole lead up to
that was
John
a
Wick.
really sweet scene in a sense. It's like, John stating that. I think I actually have my quotes. And we could get intermingle quotes and everything. I think,
we're all over the place.
We're all over the place anyway, but who cares? But the thing is that John stated it. He goes, John Wick, good husband.
Well, he asks, what would you like? What do you want on your gravestone?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other touching scenes is when John meets Winston by Sharon's marker. And they talk about, what would you put on yours? And Winston, with a lot of emotion, talks about he decided to put friend on Sharon's.
Yeah.
But that's when I think there's a lot of little pieces in here that show us John accepted and knew his death was coming up. They talk about, there's only two ways out. And I think they all knew the way out for John.
Yeah, it was him making a point to those people and making his mark.
Right. And then we had the Bowery King. He's great. Long live the king.
I love that.
I love that he shows up in Paris in the catacombs. And not just, I mean, he's taken over, he's the king. But when John walks in, there's like all this artwork. He's just collecting great things down there. It's a far cry from pigeons on a rooftop.
Yeah. One character in particular, we mentioned him. We didn't really talk too much about him. You brought it up, Clancy Brown, and you put that in notes, and we talked about his previous films. He plays the Harbinger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's meant for the High Table, and he's like a representation of the High Table.
Right. He's an impartial messenger and represents the High Table, just like the Adjudicator did. So It's a new role, another role we see. They're not all assassins.
Yeah. When we first encounter him, though, when he shows up at the Continental before it gets blown up, he puts down his left hand to put a coin. He's missing the same finger that John is.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
So I thought that it's like, okay, that's how he became impartial, which I think is a nod to John in a sense of maybe he's not dead and he could come back as a Harbinger.
Or that he had at one point met with the Elder and had that sacrifice for some reason.
Correct.
To come back or for a new role. Interesting.
But his at the very end with the duel between Kane and John, and obviously at the very end with Marquis himself, and then he goes, "Hold on," and then Winston points it out to him, and he goes, "Hold on, he hasn't yet fired," meaning to John.
Oh, I don't think the Harbinger pointed that out. I know the Marquis stood up. He walked in because he wanted to fire the last bullet. He just grabs the
gun. Yeah, he grabs the gun from Kane for the last bullet. Oh, and
that's what Winston said, you arrogant asshole.
Yes.
He didn't fire.
Yep, and then that's when you look at the Harbinger, and the Harbinger goes, yep, boom.
Yep, lets him go.
Mm-hmm. He lets it go, and then that's it.
Well, how arrogant was he, the Marquis?
Oh, yeah.
God. He was the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah. I just love that particular end scene. The biggest scene that I loved that a lot of people didn't like, I already stated, was the stairs going like John's traveling up there. Now,
see, that was in my favorite scenes.
It was my favorite scene. There was another scene that a lot of people had that I talked to over the past 2 weeks. One of them was that they used like kind of like a fire weapon.
Oh, the dragon breath.
The dragon breath that they used. They were talking about that. I was like, I could care less about that. I'm talking about the whole, that's something out of The Exorcist going down the stairs kind of thing with John Wick.
Oh, no. Oh, that was part of the comedy.
I know that, but also it's also like the Joker stairwell too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with Joaquin Phoenix. So it's like iconic in the sense of the stairs. It's like the climb.
Oh, it's kind of an old black and white silent movie. Oh, damn it. I wrote it down. Buster Keaton.
Yes.
He had that kind of physical comedy.
Correct.
Yeah. And the other fun fact about that scene with the stairs up to the Sacre-Cœur is that there's a little gondola. You don't have to go up those stairs.
Yeah, you can.
And you could almost see it. You could almost see it on the side where you can just get in. It just kind of it takes you up there. And I mean, what's funny is like, okay, if this were real, like none of it is. But, what if they got in a little gondola and John's standing there like little elevator music, real slow while they're going upstairs. It wouldn't have been as great. I love that scene. But when someone told me that you don't have to walk the stairs, there's a little like tram that takes you up. Like,
that's like in San Francisco with the whole curved road.
I'd rather do the curves.
Oh, I did that. I walked them up there. Me and my sister did that. But yeah, it is always a different way of getting up there. But obviously for cinematic
right.
beauty.
And just the stamina to climb those stairs. I looked at the stairs and I went like, I would be tired. And he's running, he's fighting, he's shooting.
He's shooting.
He falls down, he goes up him 3 times.
Yeah. On top of that too, let's talk about that with all the guns and muzzle shots and everything that they've had within this particular movie. Here's a cool thing that they did in this particular movie that they haven't done, and it really has been working up to this over the years. Now, I don't have any unknown or interesting facts on the particular movie, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's a brand new film. And one of the this information that I got was pretty cool for the fact that I think Mark Bernard actually mentioned it, and he was talking about it on a podcast, and the fact that they use mechanized guns to give you the feel of the impact of it shooting. And
you mean
and the muzzle
the
flares
guns they're using?
That the guns they're using, there are no blanks in them. There's no live ammunition in any way. They have mechanized units to pinpoint the idea of a round going off and giving that physical reaction to it. But there isn't
the kickback.
The kickback is real that you see with him, especially if he reloads and cocks it.
Well, that's one of the great things about this movie. They don't have the magical guns with all the bullets. I mean, he reloads, and when he's empty and he can't reload, he throws the gun.
Well, it's also they did
and he throws them at a person as a weapon.
Yeah, to the crotch. I saw that. That was so funny at the very top. But the fact is that they actually did live ammo counts based upon his reloading.
Mm-hmm.
So with those particular guns, you have maybe up to 14 rounds.
You have 21 with Viper.
With a Viper, yeah. But with certain Glocks, there are 14 rounds. There's maybe 7 or 8, depending on the type of clip that you get. It's really cool in the sense that they do that. And then they have to physically put in those muzzle flares. Like they would do on...
CG?
Yeah, the CG for like Walking Dead and stuff. But they actually had real kickback with these particular guns to give that so the actors felt like they were actually within a gunfight without having live ammunition. And they don't have to have those issues like they did with the movie The Crow, where they had something in the barrel and it wasn't cleaned properly or something like that. Or John Eric Hexum during the TV series The Voyagers, where he died too, where he was playing around with a fake, with a gun with.
Well, we've had one more recently too. So
yeah, but they could get away where they don't have that. They don't have people's lives in jeopardy.
So they just have mechanically in there that you get exactly.
Yeah, and then eventually you could probably buy them on eBay, and you could have.
And that was one of my points too. I mean, the ones that have like the fake kickback, that'd be interesting. But every single gun in this movie is available for sale.
Oh, yes.
Down to the Viper. There's like a 60-month waiting period to get one. But every single one of those you can order or buy online, which, America. But
America. Yeah.
America.
But
I use the A, America.
America. Hey, well, I am a licensed gun holder, but the thing is, I understand the callbacks to that of people being thoroughly investigated based upon certain things, and they shouldn't have them. But there are people out there who do acquire them. And, I feel bad for the fact that some people legally get them and they shouldn't have them. And there are the people that are illegally still getting them, and then they do their things. But
well, unless you're John Wick and the Assassins, then you have like a bank vault full of
gold coins.
Well, okay. I was thinking a weapons arsenal, but
to buy them,
and guns with dragon's breath. So I'll just go with the unreality part of that.
Well, that's the whole point. That's what I love about this, because it is in any way realistic. Because if it was realistic, we'd be living in a world that I'd be running away from.
Right. Well, in this movie too, it's almost like the scenes where they're shooting each other is not part of the story. I mean, it's part of the story. It's what's happening. The story is the writing.
I think I went through all my favorite points, which is so funny.
Yeah, it kind of did. I mean, the stairway was that was just favorite. And one of the great kind of reveals is, I mean, he has to get to the top of those stairs before sunrise. So he's fighting. And then all of a sudden Kane comes in.
Yeah, and he has 3 minutes to get up there. Yeah.
Right. And even look at the watch and how long do we have and all those things. And he asks him if he wants noon or 9, which is referring to what position do you want?
Yep.
On a clock, which I love. I've used that reference with people, not while I'm shooting, but before. But we also see, of course, the tracker, Mr. Nobody, come in, and we can see he switched to Ally.
Yeah.
And of course, he uses the dog for balls.
The funny moment that I like in the movie is when the Marquis changes everything. He literally calls, and you see the tellers with, kind of the old phone booth tellers. The operators themselves saying, because they upped the ante and went from like 25 million up to I
think they hit 40.
Yeah, it hit up to like $40 million for all hitters to hit John Wick before he even gets there, before dawn. Literally, so it's like putting a hit on him on top of a hit before he can get there for the duel.
In the beginning, we find out the tracker. He's not an assassin. So one question was for me, was he an assassin at one point? But he's a tracker. He's after the money. Yeah. And he has that book with all the drawings. And he's waiting for the bounty to go up.
Because he actually asked for 25 million. If you remember.
And 25 after.
And 25 after that. And then by the time midnight struck, and you got the, of all things, I'm dating myself at this point. But kind of the Warriors kind of movie where you get the radio DJ saying, it's like, explaining. It's a great nod. That and
right down to her mouth up against the
lipstick and everything. And it was like, classy black woman, given that like cool jazzy.
Well, and that's where we get the throwback music from too.
Yeah.
That was great.
And it's also like that in Vanishing Point too. That's another movie I love too. So it's a 1973 white Dodge Challenger that I love to have, but I could never ever have in my life.
Well, and in this one we have a Barracuda.
Yeah, but Kowalski had a 1973 Dodge Challenger.
Okay, well, I did see a Challenger in there, but in the Arc de Triomphe scene, when he gets in the car, I went, oh my God, is that like his old car? And it was a Barracuda.
And it was a Barracuda,
I love that all of a sudden, a nod back to the other ones.
The first movie.
Right, where the doors are blown off. That scene was pretty... the choreography in that was pretty amazing.
It's like, am I watching the first movie again? What's going on here?
I love that, though.
But the fact is that we get that, and everybody's scrambling to find John because they want to kill him. And he gets himself tossed out of, like, top of an apartment building or something onto a car.
Oh, my God. And the car smashes more than he does.
He does.
He just gets up and goes, ow.
This is like 2 months after he already gotten thrown out again at something that was...
When also in that scene with the cars, at some point he gets thrown up against one.
Yeah.
It dents. He kind of goes, and he gets up.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was great. That would have been one of my favorite scenes, except there are so many more.
But the one scene that I just could not get into, which was kind of realistic, it was just after the Samurai Squad, as I call them, which is Chidi's guys in the samurai armor. Mm-hmm. You got the two big bro dudes that are German that are in suits. Now, did they have Kevlar suits like John did later on, but they come out? But John's shooting them flat out, and they're German bouncing off.
Oh, not the samurais.
After the samurais. They were like two German bro dudes that one was like very much huge and bald. Looked like Kingpin. But he was doing dead-on shots with his gun to him.
Do you mean Killa in that scene?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, after he goes to the Roboresca. Yeah. That was another one that was very cartoonish.
It was very cartoonish in the sense I'm like, wait a minute, yeah. Are those bullets bouncing off him or what's going on? That's the only thing I could not believe of all things in this particular movie. I was like, I can't believe that. He's doing like straight on dead shots to this guy. He not going down. I'm like, does he have Kevlar for his suit?
Kevlar Yeah.
a Kevlar suit like the Bower King gave John later on. And I thought about that.
They all do, right?
They all have to.
Kevlar underwear and everything.
Yeah, Kevlar underwear. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I wonder if their balls
jingle.
jingle.
Not supposed to mean anything other than you. Everything's Kevlar. Come on, guys.
But I did enjoy the movie overall. But the thing is like when I saw those two guys and they were getting head on dead. I was like, are they on PCP or something? What's going on here?
Well, see, and that makes me think of there were a couple scenes that, I mean, really, if they wanted to cut the time down, they could have taken the Berlin dance party out, the rave.
Yeah, him walking through it and him chasing after the guys just to get to that one guy to shoot him. Yeah.
Well, it was a good scene. I mean, with the dancing in the background, great music. The killer character, I was kind of like, okay, it might be a little too out there. But that's also when we see the tracker, John, and Kane come together on the other side of the table. And that's when we see them all together. And for me, that was like, okay, here's the point of this. But I mean, other than he had to prove he killed him to get his ticket mended.
Yeah.
So, and the other scene was, I walked in the second time late and I missed that whole, 15 minutes with the elder and the desert. And you know what? I didn't miss that. Just like they could have cut out a lot in between and made it a little bit more fluid. Right. Well, in chapter 3, that was a part I had a problem with that just didn't exactly.
It was out of the way. It was like something. Right. It was like, why are we in a desert right now? We didn't need to have that. I think we mentioned that too on that particular podcast. Yep. It wasn't really needed. They could have edited that out completely. And
they could have explained any of the points in there with exposition, but that was the part where they kind of. Chad saw Lawrence of Arabia like the night before, and they were talking about it. It was one of those
wanted to have it.
You want to go to the desert? Oh, let's go to the desert.
Let's do it. Yeah. We got the money. Let's do it.
I could. Like I said, I walked in late, didn't miss it at all. But hey, they don't make it, so I like everything. They didn't consult me. What can I say?
No. Well, they need to consult their fans.
On speed dial. Come on,
so,
Keanu.
You guys, you have questions about the Continental or Ballerina? Let Kat know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've kind of done a deep dive. I could go on and on and on.
All right. Well, I'm finished with all my points and my thoughts and some notes. There's only one note that I'm going to go over, but that's going to be after we do quotes. Do you have any
two
quotes?
More favorite scenes.
Go ahead and go with them.
They're just small. I don't have to go through all of it. I love the end with the duel.
Yes.
Absolutely love that. It was beautifully shot. It looked like a painting.
It looked like something out of Highlander when they did the duel.
There's I think it's Mansfield paintings. The lighting in it that just reminded me of this one artist. But yeah, when we find out.
Just before daylight, too, and they're doing it, and it's the single-shot pistol, which is a dueling pistol, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we see, Winston and John, and at one point they're looking out, and he says, what a beautiful sunrise. It's almost like a goodbye. And one of the things I liked in this is we see a lot of emotion with Winston.
Correct.
I mean, he is really, really...
feeling it.
Yeah. When Sharon dies, I think we even see a tear, Yeah. And at one point, he calls John son.
Yes.
And it just, there was a lot more emotion in this. It wasn't Keanu showing emotion, but the other characters all had more touching scenes. And I think that it just brought some richness to this movie that, love the other ones, but hate and revenge and anger can't be the only emotions.
That is true.
So that, and the other just small scene, because they're all about action, and those were easy to pick. But the scene where Winston meets the Marquis in the museum, in the Louvre.
Yeah.
And I've heard people just really hate how long Winston takes to walk through that museum. Just walking along, we hear click, 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 click. And I love that. I mean, it was a great scene when they talk about the duel and this fabled duel that, isn't real. He presents that scroll and says, we're challenging you to a duel. And, there's like, he doesn't have a family. That's not real. Finally, the Marquis has to accept that, okay, well, maybe this is real and it's happening. And he tries to tell Winston, like, okay, we are finished here. And Winston goes, we are not finished until I say so, or until I'm finished. So he makes his presentation for what he wants, because Winston's in there. He wants to take care of himself. But the Continental is rebuilt and he is reinstated as the manager. And John knows nothing about that.
No, he doesn't.
I know. And then he walks up to, God, I wish I remembered or had the quote. The Marquis is used to being in charge. And he walks up and he just kind of tells him like this and that and goes, and now we are finished. And he walks away. So those were, the quietness, they're in front of, they're in the Louvre. The Marquis, with his poshness, has set up just a posh, there's a rug, all this stuff. He's not sitting on a bench like the rest of us would. He's set up this private sitting so he can look at, what is it called? That big painting, Liberty of the People. So I just, details like that, there was one scene where he cuts this piece of a cake or a tart out and everything's red and velvet and beautiful. And there's all of these things on a table and he's going to take one bite, but they're all for him. That and his wainscots, his wardrobe is just very beautiful. But I digress, or go on and on and on. You have to stop me or I will go on and on and on.
Well, I don't have that kind of time.
I know. God damn it, I do.
All right. Well, with that, we'll move on to quotes. I'm sure you have a couple of quotes, right?
Right. In the last, when we talked about chapter 3, I said, I bet you can figure out what my favorite quote is. Did you have an idea of what that was?
Not offhand, sorry.
Oh, okay. Favorite one was at the end during the duel. Winston is bringing, there's like this velvet tray with each bullet. They only get one bullet. They get 30 paces, 20 paces, and 10 paces for each bullet. Mm-hmm. And with the first one, Winston walks up to present this bullet to John. And John says, last words, Winston? And Winston looks at him and says, just have fun out there. I just love that. I love that. Just the look between the two of them, but it just, what a great line. That exchange. So, and in the theater too, I laughed out loud. There were people cheering and clapping, not louder than me, but
yeah,
that was my favorite line though. Last words, Winston. Just have fun out there.
Well, the movie definitely had some great one-liners out of the Bowery King, out of Winston, and definitely the Marquis, and as well as the Tracker himself, as well as Kane. But mine always came from the talks between Shimazu and Kane. And one was Shimazu saying, a good death comes after a good life. And that was pointed towards John.
Yes. And actually, John's response was the longest line that he had in the whole thing.
Yes.
And I have it down here. I can't quote it exactly, but he says, you and I left the good life behind long ago, my friend.
Yes.
And yes, that was very beautiful and touching, but yeah.
It was a touching scene. That was them on top of the rooftop. It was like just before everything went down and got crazy with...
That was so beautifully done.
Yeah. Next up, the only one that I have next is Kane to Shimazu just before Kane kills him.
What was that?
Oh, yes, even a blind man can see that you lost.
It's
because he literally takes Shimazu's life.
Right.
And it's sad, but the fact that it was done out of respect. And you could tell that Kane respected Shimazu and Shimazu respected Kane.
Yeah, more the loyalty.
Correct.
In all of this. Right. Well, and then after that, at the end of that scene, he walks by Kira, the daughter, and he says, I'll be waiting for you. Because you know she will be coming for him.
Well, that's where it leads me to my other notes in the end credit scene.
Well, I had one more favorite quote.
All right, good.
I am Klaus. I am Klaus. Very simple, but, he's not Groot. I am Klaus. But, yeah, that said it all.
The way I was trying to relay that and segue into the last quote that I had was the end credit scene with Akira going after Kane when you were discussing that. Akira going after Kane at the end credits. But it's, the question is still, is John really dead? Or does the story continue on with Akira going after Kane and then Kane being on the run now in a new series?
I think so. I think as much as I hate it, I think John's done. Whether he's faking his death or not.
Yeah.
But the next movie could be Kane and Akira easily. And we'll get to know his daughter more too.
Correct.
But that's where we bring in, I don't know about the Marquis, but I'd love to see more of the tracker too. Mr. Nobody. Oh my God. When he asked who he was and said, I'm nobody, I guffawed. I was just like, oh my God, reference to Nobody.
The movie Nobody, which we covered.
Yeah.
2 years ago, people.
Yeah. Well, that's when it came out. You were more current.
Then.
Yeah. We do our best.
We try to do our best. All right. With that, I think we kind of covered John Wick Chapter 4. So that was fun. I really did enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we could go on and on. I have more notes. Oh, I can go on and on.
I know you can go on and on, but we're not going to be going on and on. All right. So
they were just simple stats. Like I always come up with how many kills. And this one, John had 140 kills on screen.
Okay.
I love the stat or the detail that he had 107 lines in the entire movie. Keanu had 107 lines.
Yes.
And it was only 380 words. It was amazing.
The funny thing is that with every movie, I think they diminished how many lines of dialogue he's had over the years in these particular movies.
In an interview, Chad talked about how he gave the script to Keanu, and they crossed out 27% of his lines. Keanu was like, nope, he can't say this much. Which was just, okay, man, he knows a character.
Yeah. He's trying to go on the same aspect of what Nick Cage did during Willy's Wonderland, where he said nothing. He's just an action hero who doesn't say anything.
Well, that would be John Wick. Yeah.
That would be John Wick.
Action.
All action, no talk.
Keanu doesn't need to say much.
Yeah. But it would be funny if, like, after he shoots somebody, he'd be like, whoa.
Maybe to you and a few other people.
Yeah, I know.
But I mean, they do have a lot of those little Easter eggs in there, so
they do.
He could say it under his breath. Kind of.
Yeah.
So much we haven't talked about.
Johnny Utah. All right. Well, with that, we'll move right along, and where else can listeners hear you, or do you have any podcast recommendations?
Well, no one can hear me anywhere except out in the wilderness talking to goats, like I always bring up.
Or sending in feedback to other
goats
people.
Are not my life. Yeah. Well, you'll find that. Yeah. And I did not write any podcast recommendations down.
That's fine.
Of course, we always have our friends at Podcastica. You have some on Pirate Core. Tell me about those.
Well, for Pirate Core, you can find me on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition with Rob, Frank, Patrick, probably Zach. Sometimes Steve, depending if he comes on. Whereas with Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, we kind of do like a football league kind of fantasy pick of movies, or like what we would do to change a particular movie as well. So with the fantasy pick, it's like our top 5 of a particular genre film. Or if like with a specific movie, how would we rewrite it or recast a particular movie to make it better because it was terrible?
I like that format, even if it's good.
Yeah, it's like an armchair quarterback of, hey, if I had my opportunity, I'd get rid of this composer. I'd take the director out of it. I get rid of Hayden Christensen. Sorry, I'm not pointing you out, Hayden Christensen, but I'm just saying, that they would change the actor out completely. It's like that person was completely terrible for that particular part. We could change it with this. Or
right. So if you were on speed dial, what should we do? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So we do that there. So I think coming up is we're going to be covering Wonder Woman 1984 with Gal Gadot.
Does that mean we all have to rewatch it?
You don't necessarily have to rewatch it, but
I like the actors in it, not necessarily the whole movie.
There's a lot of things that we always say about within that particular podcast. We always say it's the writing more than anything. Writing,
even a good actor can do their best
with the writing that's at hand, and we've seen that too with Fear the Walking Dead, because all of them are great actors, and they've been handed crap when it came to their characters and writing.
I don't know how they can read those lines without rolling their eyes.
Much love to Coleman Domingo and everybody else that on that show. I just love them dearly as people and actors. They are very genuinely talented. It's just that
they can't. Their talent doesn't even improve that show.
Yeah, well, they need to end it soon, eventually. But yeah, you could hear me on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition with Rob, Patrick, and Frank. And whoever else will be on. Yeah. We're trying to get Steve on there as well. You could also hear me on Panels to Pixels podcast with Steve Brown. So Steve, Rob, and I just covered Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So we already gave our thoughts. That should be coming out after this particular podcast. Sorry, people, I've been away. Life gets in the way, and I've had issues trying to negotiate times when people could actually record.
Scheduling can be difficult because we do all have lives.
Yeah. And, well, on top of that, you could hear me here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. Jerry and I, by the time you get this, Jerry and I already have King Kong out, the 1930s version. We covered that for its 90th anniversary. So
you published it, or is it in the can?
It's in the can, and it'll already be out by the time this comes out. So cool. By the time you guys are hearing this, it's already been out. So, and then
I love you and Jerry together. Love you both, but you're good podcasters too.
And then what's coming up in the works for podcasts? Go with myself. Our friends Rima and Kristen and I are covering Tombstone.
Oh, that'll be a good one to revisit.
For it's showtime, folks. So you could check that out when that comes out, and I'll keep you guys apprised about that one on Facebook, on Instagram, as well as Twitter.
Check out all those feeds.
Yeah, check out all the feeds. But that's where you can hear me.
All the feeds and all the fields.
But as far as this, we didn't really put anything out for feelers for feedback, but to submit your theories and feedback, all you have to do is go to our Facebook group, facebook.com/AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. Usually I post
your favorite Keanu Reeves movie to cover next.
Oh, we covered a lot already. We already did Speed. We already did Point Break.
The Constantine.
Oh, we didn't do Constantine, but that could be on a Panels to Pixels podcast episode because it is based off a comic. So, yeah, if you guys want us to do another Keanu Reeves movie, let us know.
I could do a whole podcast series that could just be the John Wick podcast.
Probably. And just break down everything.
And go on and on and on.
Like I stated, facebook.com/AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. We could be heard on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, TuneIn, Deezer, or whatever podcast player of choice. If there is a rating or review, especially in Apple Podcasts, please do so. That actually gets us noticed and have people aware of us.
More eyeballs and ears.
More eyeballs and ears. And actually, word of mouth actually does really well, too. So I actually spoke to a couple of people, and they were like, yeah, I'll mention it. So
great.
But that's about it. So I have to return a couple of VHS tapes, but I'll talk to you guys later.
Netflix they're getting rid of their mail order. So everyone get out your DVDs and send them back.
I was trying to do an American Psycho thing. Jeez.
Oh, God. We haven't covered it yet, so I haven't rewatched it yet.
Okay.
Sorry to step on your reference with current news.
All right, that was Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, everybody. Good night.
Good night.